through the request by the defense team for Noon Chie pursuant to Rule 87.4, that is to admit through written statements of a witness to TCW 1036, who is going to testify today. In the afternoon of the 20th September 2016, the defense team for Noon Chie sent an email requesting to make an oral submission on this request, and for that reason, first the chamber wishes to hand the floor to Noon Chie defense to reiterate their request. Please make it brief.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honours and Council. It is about two additional WRIs provided by the upcoming witness to the International Co-Investigating Judge. They are numbered F2/4/2 3.2.2 and F2/4/2 3.2.1, and in accordance with the practice that we formally have to request the admittance, we hereby do so in the light of the fact that these are two statements in addition to an already admitted statement. We believe that it is important that both WRIs will be admitted into evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel for Noon Chie, and I now hand the floor to the co-prosecutor to respond to the request. And please make it brief.
I can be be very brief. We have no objection and agree these records should be admitted.
Thank you, and lead co-lawyer for civil parties, you have the floor if you wish to respond to that request.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. President. No objection.
Thank you, and Counsel for Kieu Sampon, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Bonjour.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. Obviously, there is no objection from the defense for Kieu Sampon.
Thank you, Counsel, and the Chamber thanks the parties for your observations and responses, and we will use them as basis for our decision, which will be issued in due course. Court officer, please usher Mr. Sam Om into the courtroom. And co-prosecutor, you may resume your questioning.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. Witness. I want to direct you now to the period after Un's arrest, at which time you were sent out to farm rice, initially at Kapsrao and then Boeing Prayup. After the arrest of Un and the other leaders of the division, were there many ordinary combatants from your division or regiment who were arrested or who disappeared?
When I was at Kapsrao, not many people disappeared. but when I was at Bang Prayat, many people disappeared. They were taken away in an enclosed vehicle, and one or two people kept disappearing constantly, and I did not know where they were taken to, and we were in constant fear at that stage.
Did you witness yourself people being taken away?
Yes, I saw people being put into a vehicle. They were arrested, they were tied up and then placed onto the vehicle, and I was scared when I saw that.
And during the time you were at Bang Prayat, how often did these arrests take place?
It did not happen every day. It happened like every 10 days or a fortnight.
Can you give us some estimate of the number or the percentage of people in your regiment who were arrested or who disappeared?
Initially, there were more than 500 soldiers, and then they were removed continually. Some were said to be sent for study sessions, and the number reduced to 300.
What about wives or family members, relatives of the division, regiment, battalion leaders who were arrested? What happened to the spouses or family members of those people?
The wives and the children of senior people were gathered to live in one place in Chiang Chimre, and I visited that location once. Those wives, some of the wives had a child or two children, while others did not have any kid. And they were gathered to live in that location, and I did not know what happened to them later on.
Let me ask you, the reason I ask you this is in the records for the S-21 security office, they record that a number of the wives and relatives of the leaders were arrested and sent to S-21. For example, on the 31st of December 1976, eight wives of previously arrested Division 310 cadres were sent to S-21. Your Honors, you'll find these as numbers 510, 511, 513 through 517, and 866 of the OCIJ S-21 list. In the case of Division Secretary Un, his wife, Prum Nor, alias Vien, was sent to S-21 on the 26th or 27th of February, 1977. She is number 6961 in the OCIJ list. Un's 64-year-old father, Sabu Ket, was sent to S-21 on the 9th of March, 1977, executed 1 month later on the 4th of April. He is number 2542 on the OCIJ list. And a 14-year-old female cousin of Un was sent to S-21 in November She is number 6770 on the OCIJ list. The wife of Division Deputy Secretary Vung was arrested and sent to S21 on the 9th of March 1977 and executed 2 weeks later. She is number 2543. Does this refresh your memory at all, Mr. Witness? Do you remember any of the wives, children, or relatives of the Division 310 leaders being arrested and disappearing?
No, I was not aware of any. I did not know when those wives and children were arrested.
Fair enough. Let me turn to a few questions about this purported coup plot. You've said that your knowledge, you don't have any or have very little knowledge of this. Let me ask you a few follow-up questions nonetheless. First, regarding this, what the defense counsel referred to as a secret document. You testified that you were told about this by Eun's messenger. What was the name of Eun's messenger who told you about this document?
I do not recall the name. I forget it.
When Eun's messenger told you about this document, did he say whether the document he saw may have been a prisoner confession that was describing this plot or plan?
I did not see it, and I only heard it from the messenger. So I only heard about the document when the messenger told me that there was a planned coup. And what I knew only was for the preparation or the arrangement of the uniforms, the weapons, and the boots. And that when the coup was initiated, they would change into those uniforms. That's all I knew about it. And as I said, I saw them preparing those uniforms, weapons, and boots into separate units. There were 10 uniforms for one unit, for example, and a set of 10 uniforms for us, the artillery unit, or for another set for a mortar unit. However, after the Eun was arrested, it became quiet.
I'll ask you some questions about those uniforms in a moment. Let's just finish up about this document that Eun's messenger told you about. Did Eun's messenger have any explanation of how it was feasible for the United States military to intervene within 24 hours? Did he have any explanation of how this could possibly happen?
He did not provide any explanation to me. He briefly spoke about it. And of course, during the regime, we did not have time to sit and chit-chat. At that time, my supervisors were holding meeting, and we, the messengers, were waiting outside, and we had a brief conversation with one another. And when the meeting was concluded, we were called and we had to go with our respective supervisor. And I did not know about the content of those meetings that the leaders or supervisors held among themselves. And I can only tell you what I knew.
Would it be accurate to describe what UN's messenger told you as gossip or chit-chat?
Witness, please wait, and counsel for Nguyen Chi, you have the floor.
Yes, Mr. President, I object to this very suggestive and leading question. First of all, there is still the evidence both in DC Cam interview and on the audio recording that he actually read it himself. He gave evidence in his DC Cam statement that it was a typed document with no signature, so he gives specifics. Now trying to dismiss this evidence by leading him into saying it was gossip is unwarranted.
Councillor, I think we have all noticed that he has changed his evidence. We read yesterday and heard what you played, but so we have different versions of the same event where it happens time and again. Now he says he hasn't read it. Obviously we'll have to make up our mind what we believe and what we don't believe, but I don't think it's a valid objection to ask the prosecutor, if you haven't read it, how have you learned it?
Let me rephrase my question. The conversation you had with UN's messenger about this, would you describe this as a serious discussion or more as chit-chat or gossip?
I spoke to the messenger outside, and it was a kind of a chit-chat conversation. And he did not have any document to refer to when he spoke to me. And yesterday I also testified that I did not read such a document. I only knew about that.
Let's turn to the uniforms, boots, and weapons that you saw. If I understood your testimony yesterday, you saw these either at the propaganda office or at a house right across from the Ministry of Propaganda. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. It was in a house opposite the propaganda office, and that was the location where they stored uniforms and weapons.
And this house, was this a building that was used by Division 310? And if so, what part of Division 310?
The house was used to store equipment, and weapons were gathered and piled in that house. Uniforms were also stored in that house. And when they arranged these weapons and uniforms, they did it there in that house. So you could somehow say that the house was used as a storage warehouse.
And what was the reason you were at this Division 310 storage warehouse?
The warehouse did not belong to the division, but it belongs to Regiment 13th. I never went near the division warehouse. As I said again, that warehouse belongs to Regiment 13th.
Thank you for that clarification. What was the reason you were at the Regiment 13 warehouse?
At that time, I was assigned to pick up something or to deliver something, and I cannot recall what it was. So I was there and I saw them arranging those equipment. I stood there and watched them for a while, and then I left.
How often were you assigned to go pick up things at the Regiment 13 warehouse?
I saw that event for one time only, and that is the truth. And later on, I was transferred to a Cops Row, so I did not go to that warehouse anymore. Since I remained in a Cops Row area, and we were prohibited from going anywhere. At Cops Row, we started working at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then we stopped for meal at around 11 or 12 noon. And after mealtime, we were not allowed to rest. We had to continue working again. And we had to find rats for them. So even during the meal break time, we had to work. We were not allowed to rest, and we were not allowed to return to where we stayed previously.
Let's focus on this warehouse, and if we can focus on what I'm asking you about, will be done a lot quicker, Mr. Witness. Where were the uniforms, boots, and weapons in the warehouse? Were they out in the open? Where were they stored?
They were stored in rooms, and in those rooms they were piled separately. For example, there was a pile of boots, and uniforms were tied into a package, and then they were piled separately. And there were separate piles. For example, in one pile there were 12 sets of uniforms, and then there was another pile where there were sets of uniforms. And then also on each pile there was a note saying that this is for this specific company or specific battalion.
Do I understand correctly, though, that they were out in the open in these rooms? You didn't have to go looking in any secret or hidden areas to find these uniforms and weapons. Is that correct?
They were stored in the room, and since the door was ajar, I could see them arranging those equipment, and after they finished it, they closed the door so nobody would knew what was inside that room. And of course, the soldiers, rank and file soldiers, were not told about what was stored inside that room.
And when you saw the people that were arranging these uniforms and weapons, did they tell you what they were for?
They said that the uniforms were reserved for soldiers, and I was wondering why was that? Because usually we would wear uniforms from China, and also uniforms in black color, as well as the car tire songs. But when I look at those uniforms and boots, they were different. They were the uniforms and boots worn by Lunar soldiers.
Did you ask them why they had that type of uniform?
I did not ask them any question. It is likely that those uniforms were war spoils, and it is my understanding that they were war spoils or they were newly made. But the material was not of good quality. They were not the materials from the United States. And the uniform was checkered, and it was not that smooth.
Let me ask you about something you said when you were describing these uniforms in your DC Cam interview. Your Honors, this is document E3/7523, Khmer ERN 000-61163, English 00875-574, French 00884-233. And you were describing here how you saw these uniforms, and then you said the following, quote,